Texas music can be defined by its many different ethnic genres. From conjunto to country, Cajun to choir, the many different types of music found throughout Texas reflect the culture and heritage of its diverse population. Houston, in particular, is an area in which many different types of music thrive. A testament to the enduring importance of Houston's divergent musical heritage is Sugar Hill Studios. Located in Houston's 3rd Ward, Sugar Hill is a cutting-edge studio with a fascinating history. With roots dating back as far as 1941, this studio became the epicenter of a rapidly developing Houston music scene. Over the decades, thousands of recordings were made here, including gold records and national chart toppers in a myriad of different genres. From R&B superstar Beyonce Knowles to the pioneer R&B artist Barbara Lynn, from country legend George Jones to platinum recording artist Clay Walker, from Zydeco to blues, psychedelic rock to Tejano, Sugar Hill's doors have been open to the entire spectrum of Houston's diverse population. In 1941, Bill Quinn began a business producing radio commercials and personal birthday greetings, Quinn Recording Services. By 1946, he branched out to form Gold Star Records, which became one of the first successful independent record labels to be based in the South. In 1947, Quinn released Jolie Blonde by Harry Choates.
Jolie Blonde.
This classic Cajun waltz sold thousands of units and was a popular radio and jukebox hit, climbing the national charts and putting Gold Star Records on the map. Quinn also began recording a young blues act he thought had potential, Sam Lightnin' Hopkins, whose first single, Short-Haired Woman, shot to the top of the charts.
I don't know ever had no lone man.
Hopkins would go on to record over 100 songs for Gold Star, helping to cement his status as one of the most influential blues musicians in history.
Ever had no lone man.
Quinn's success continued, but by the early 1950s, he chose to focus on the recording side of the business instead of the label. He converted the bottom floor of his house into a fully equipped studio, naming it Gold Star Recording Studio.
The studio that we're in right now, this was actually, where we're standing is actually the front yard of Bill Quinn's house. And the double glass is basically now one of the walls of his house that face the street. And the door we're going to walk through over there is basically where his front door was when you walked into his house / recording studio. This room became a recording studio in 1950, and this was the bottom of Bill Quinn's house. When you shoot the purple beams above our head, that's basically what the second floor of the house sat on. So this bottom part of the house was basically the recording studio and the kitchen. The kitchen is that area over there where the guitar amp is now sitting in. And where this booth over here, which is our current drum booth, was basically his dining room, which he converted into his recording booth. So that's where he recorded from, and everybody played out here.
In the mid-50s, a young man named George Jones stepped into the studio to record the song that launched his career, Why Baby Why.
Tell me why, baby, why, baby, why, baby, why you make me cry, baby, cry, baby, cry, baby, cry.
And the last major hit cut here before he moved into his new studio in the back part of the property was Chantilly Lace by the Big Bopper.
Chantilly lace and a pretty face and a ponytail hanging down.
This hit by the legendary disc jockey from nearby Beaumont stayed on the charts for over 6 months. A pop rock classic, this recording, made in Gold Star Studio A, has sold hundreds of thousands of units, and since its release has achieved over 3 million airplays.
In 1959, Bill Quinn built a giant studio which is in the back part of our building, which is no longer in use as a studio. It's basically been cut up into offices and mastering studios. He built that room in 1959 because television was just booming. He thought that he could build a big enough room where they could shoot video as well as do audio recording. The room was very useful for people to bring in high school bands to record because he could fit a full 100-piece orchestra or band in that room. That's how big it was.
In addition to large orchestras, Gold Star continued to record hits that ranged the gamut of Houston's different styles.
On the bank of the river stood Running Bear, young Indian brave.
By 1963, Bill Quinn was ready to retire. He leased Gold Star to J.L. Patterson, who began to bring in various independent engineers and producers, such as Chris Stratchwitz, who brought Zydeco pioneer Clifton Chenier to Gold Star in 1964. Another one of those independent producers was Huey P. Moe, known then as the Crazy Cajun.
If you should lose me, oh yeah.
With a string of regional hits under his belt, including Barbara Lynn's You'll Lose a Good Thing, he began to record frequently at Gold Star Studios.
And he recorded quite a number of artists here from 62 through to about June of 1965. Two of the major artists he was involved with that recorded here were the Sir Douglas Quintet, which he was the official producer of the first album, and the whole concept of that band was something that he dreamed up together with Doug Somm, and Roy Head and his famous song Treat Her Right, which went to #1 in the rhythm and blues charts in 1965 and went to #2 in the pop charts, only to be held out of the #1 spot by the Beatles.
Looking for a way to combat the British invasion, Moe produced a young band featuring the now legendary Doug Somm. The Sir Douglas Quintet recorded She's About a Mover at Gold Star, which began a lasting career for Somm and the rest of the quintet. Roy Head's Treat Her Right became an instant classic, with cover versions recorded by George Thorogood, Barbara Mandrell, and Billy Crash Craddock.
I wanna tell you a story every man ought to know. If you want a little loving, you gotta start real slow. She's gonna love you tonight now, if you just treat her right now.
In 1968, the studio was bought by International Artists, which was the real Texas psychedelic label of that era. The International Artists Corporation had signed the 30th Floor Elevators, the Bubble Puppy, the Red Crayola, Endel St. Cloud, and a number of other artists.
The psychedelic rock movement had taken Houston by storm, and no group exemplified the sound more than Rocky Erickson and his 13th Floor Elevators, who made their most influential recordings at Gold Star. Huey Moe bought the studio in 1972, changing the name to Sugar Hill.
Huey Moe thought the name Sugar Hill was nicely generic and didn't connotate any form of music being recorded. So he decided to call this place Sugar Hill. It fits perfectly into the whole concept of what's going on. And luckily, when he sold the business to Modern Music Ventures in 1986, he sold them the name. And when Dan, I, and Rodney bought the business from Modern Music Ventures in 1996, they sold us the name. So it keeps going, and we see no reason for a change.
Throughout the 1970s and early 80s, countless musicians recorded at Sugar Hill. To name a few, Marcia Ball's group Frida and the Fire Dogs, Little Feat, Freddie Fender, Ray Benson and Asleep at the Wheel, Kinky Friedman, Ricky Nelson, Todd Rundgren, Lucinda Williams, and Ted Nugent. In 1984, Andy Bradley joined the staff of Sugar Hill Recording Studios.
Well, I talked to Huey Moe, and he said, sure, if you want to bring your client base over here, I have work for you as well from my recording projects, and let's make a deal. So we made a deal. I moved over here in roughly October of 1984.
During the 1980s, Sugar Hill became an important studio for the burgeoning Tejano music scene, producing several gold records for artists including Emilio Navarra, La Fiebre, Excelencia, Johnny Rodriguez, and Adalberto Gallegos.
I also recorded, mixed an album for Little Joe y La Familia called Renunciación. And that album was highly successful. And if Billboard still did not recognize Mexican-American music yet as a genre in that time period in 1984. But the song Cuatro Caminos was a huge radio hit. And the album was incredibly popular and sold truckloads. And so that was my first real delving into the Tejano music scene in a big way.
Owned by Andy Bradley, Rodney Myers, and Dan Workman, Sugar Hill has continued to expand its musical horizons, reflecting the ever-changing population of Houston and Southeast Texas.
Houston has always both benefited and suffered from the fact that we're so eclectic. There's never been one spotlight on one type of music. Briefly, there has been Houston gangster rap, or Houston rock and roll with ZZ Top, or Houston R&B with Destiny's Child. But underneath that layer, we've had so many spotlights on so many different things. People don't realize that some of the world's best salsa bands here in Houston, Texas. Some of the world's best jazz, small ensemble jazz, here in Houston, Texas. Some of the most amazing singer-songwriters in Texas come through Houston and call Houston their home now. We had Lyle Lovett in the studio, Clay Walker, Smash Mouth, Destiny's Child, Beyonce. I mean, if they're recording, star that's somewhere located in Texas, they've been in Sugar Hill. A big majority of our clients are people who are working at a medium tier of the business or just getting started. And so it keeps us on our toes because we have to record everything you can possibly imagine. Everything from accordion polka bands to punk rock kids, from rap to Cantonese, Chinese gospel music. So it's the whole gamut.
Sugar Hill has the modern digital equipment required by many of today's contemporary artists, but also has the advantage of some very singular characteristics.
The history here is palpable, and that part of it is tangible. There's lots of old microphones here. There's lots of old plate reverbs, old electronics, ancient microphone stands, odd chairs from the 1950s. There's just a huge visual reminder, as well as technical. Some of the gear that we work with is really, really old and has been here for a long time.
One of the most unique characteristics is built into the studio itself.
Whoa! Echo. At Sugar Hill, we have literally the effects built into the building the way that they used to in the old days. The echo chambers are what served to make special effects back in the days before there was digital effects or even some of the older analog electronic effects. They literally built it into the hardware of the building, into the form of the building. Spaces that were plastered, unfinished, and they would pipe the music in there through a speaker and then pick it back up, and you would get the echo sound.
Reverb has been and continues to be an essential effect used in most recordings.
Through the years, there have been different ways to do this electronically. I mean, big, huge plates that came from Germany, which we have 2 of upstairs, and then smaller electronic boxes that were discrete electronics, and then finally a piece of software that you run on the computer. This is where it all came from. This is the mother of reverb. Music from the control room is pumped into the speakers here in the reverb chamber. The microphones pick up that music as it's amplified and changed by the reverb chamber, and then that's sent back to the control room and added back into the song or the piece of music. And we can actually pick out the way this sounds on records. If we're listening to a record and wonder if it was recorded here, if we can hear enough of the echo on it, we can tell that it was this room. So it imparts a signature that is a part of the studio that's unique and is a big part of the Sugar Hill sound.
And I can tell you, all the people, that if they want to go and listen to She's About a Mover by the Sir Douglas Quintet, you'll find that the lead singer, Doug Somm, and the shaker he's playing are covered in that reverb.
From its earliest incarnation to contemporary hits, Sugar Hill Studios continues to be a vibrant and important place for all genres of music.
Why the sudden change? Say my name, say my name.
We've never rejected the history, we just keep embracing the future.
You ain't running game. Say my name, say my name. You acting kinda shady. Ain't calling